Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. And happy Easter to all of you. Now, I know that before we get started in the message today, it's going to be hard for you to concentrate because you're wondering, how did I make that coin disappear out of that envelope? And of course, I want to be sensitive to that and just tell you that why don't you save me a piece of chocolate today from Easter, and then when we all get back together again, hopefully that'll be shortly, you bring that chocolate to me and I'll show you how I made that coin disappear. But a special welcome if you're visiting us online today for the first time, and maybe you've actually never been inside of a church building before, but you're curious about Easter. It's the biggest celebrated day in the church calendar for Christians. And if that describes you, you're just curious, then I want you to relax. Because today we don't have anything expectation from you as much as there's something that we would like to give you. It's for you. And that is to offer you a deeper level of understanding of the Easter story. I mean beyond the chocolate bunny and the Easter eggs and the Easter hunts and so on. All that stuff is fun, and it's fun to do, especially the chocolate part. But at a deeper level, I want to talk to you about a piece that we are invited into by the Creator of the universe, someone that we refer to as our Heavenly Father, when we grab onto what happened on that very first Easter. Now, this, of course, is the weekend that would reflect on Jesus' death and his resurrection. And so Jesus rising from the dead, which is what we believe as Christians, which is what the Bible teaches us, has significant implications in all of our lives. The account of Jesus' resurrection is found in all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And so it was widely known. At one point, actually, after his resurrection, he appeared to over 500 people at once. So it wasn't like he hid the resurrection. As a matter of fact, historians have showed us that there is more evidence that Jesus was raised from the dead than Pontius Pilate ever lived. But today, I'm going to jump into Mark's account of the resurrection. And so if you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Mark chapter 16, or you can Google it if you like, and you can follow along. And I'm going to kind of start and stop as I work my way through this text, because I want to fill in some of the blanks and some of the puzzles that we read when we kind of read through this text. So we're going to go to Mark chapter 16, and I'm going to start at verse 1. And this is what we read. Now when the Sabbath was past, that's Saturday, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices that they may come to anoint him. So let's stop for a minute. It was customary in Jesus' time that at the death of a person, that somebody would come and they would do a final preparation for the body for burial. And so they went to the tomb to anoint Jesus, prepare him for his final burial. Verse 2, very early in the morning, on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. And they said amongst themselves, who will roll away the stone from the door of the tomb for us? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a long white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Now, this is some type of angelic being. So to set the stage, these were women that went to the tomb, and these were also the women who were there and saw Jesus when he was living. They also were there at his crucifixion. So they're living in despair. The person that they had put all their trust in, all their hope in, was dead. And so what they wanted to do something about it. So they went to the tomb. The only thing they could do was to prepare the body for burial. But suddenly there's no despair. Confusion, yes. Jesus' body is not there. And who is this angelic being? And so they faced, for the first time, the reality of the resurrection. Let's keep going. Verse 6. But he said to them, that's the angelic being, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified, but he is risen. Now, usually as we would gather together, as a congregation, I say he is risen, there'd be shouting and hollering, and we would all yell out that he is risen indeed. Then the angelic being said, he's not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before them into Galilee. There you will see him as he said. The importance of the Easter message is that Jesus has defeated death. He has walked right through death and defeated it. He has conquered it. So that all his promises to us, that those who put their faith in him, have come true. Such as, whoever believes in me will never die. That's a promise we have, that there's life beyond the grave. Life doesn't stop there. Jesus said that I've come to give you a new life. I guess you could say that your old life has been resurrected with Jesus' new life. Jesus said, if you drink this water I give you, this living water, you will never thirst again. And he says, if you ask for forgiveness, I will forgive you. There is this reconciliation that we can have between ourselves and God. And all those statements that Jesus said in his teachings, they're all true because he is risen. But, there's another part of this story that's very comforting. And that's kind of where I want to park today. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's comfort that's found in just 2 words in our text. And these 2 words, they change everything for you and for I. And they're often missed. But here they are, okay? The angelic being says, but go tell the disciples and Peter. Why Peter? Why single him out? If that was me, and I was the angelic being, something I'm often confused for, I would have said, go tell the disciples, and Pilate. If you remember Pilate from Good Friday, it was like he had held Jesus, he thought he held Jesus in his hands and had the power of life and death over him. And of course, he condemned Jesus to death. Well, wouldn't you love to see the look on his face when the woman said, hey, Pilate, Jesus is not dead. He's alive. Now you know what he meant when he said his kingdom is not of this world. Or I would have said to the women, go tell the disciples, and the Pharisees, or the crowd, the group that yelled out, crucify him, crucify him. What do they think now? He was crucified, but now he's alive. He told you over and over that he was the Son of God. Do you believe him now? Or I would have said, go tell the disciples and John. John was Jesus' beloved disciple. He says in John that he's the disciple whom I loved. He was loyal. He was there with Jesus in his ministry right up to the time he was at the cross. He stayed there while all the other disciples abandoned him. But he said, go tell the disciples and Peter. Tell Peter that Jesus is not in the tomb. He's risen. Why Peter? Why him? 3 years before the very first Easter, Peter and his brother Andrew were fishing at the Sea of Galilee, and one day Jesus walks by them and he says, come follow me, and I will make you into fishers of men. So if you know the story, Peter and Andrew, they left their nets and their boats and their father and their family and their lives behind them so they could follow Jesus. And for the next 3 years, Peter would follow Jesus all over Judea and Samaria, learning and growing and becoming a disciple of Jesus. Peter witnessed Jesus' miracles. He learned from his teachings. He went wherever Jesus went, on dusty roads, walking, talking, listening, learning. Peter was there if for the great miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000, and he did it with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And Peter was the one who helped collect 12 baskets of leftovers when it was all done, more than what they had started with. If you remember, it was Peter, James, and John who followed Jesus up the mountain and watched Jesus' transfiguration. I mean, I can't even explain to you what a holy moment that must have been for them. Peter saw Jesus in all his glory. It must have been looking right into a nuclear explosion. In that situation, Peter saw Elijah speaking and Moses speaking with Jesus. And he heard the voice of God come from above, which said, "This is my son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." Peter experienced all of that. It was Peter in the middle of the raging storm in the Sea of Galilee, when everybody else was terrified and Jesus was walking out on the water towards them and they thought it was a ghost. But Peter was the one who got out of the boat and walked on water towards Jesus. The others didn't even get out of the boat. And it was Peter who first said to Jesus, when Jesus said, "Who do you say I am?" Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Peter's faith in Jesus was so firm that Jesus referred to him as the rock, Petros. I mean, you can't get any more solid than a rock. Peter boasted to Jesus one day, and Matthew records the conversation. Peter said, "Even if everyone else falls away on account of you, I never will," said Peter. "Even if I have to die, I'll never disown you." Peter was rooted, he was faithful, he was unshakable, he was dependable, he was a pillar of faith. Yet if you know the story, the last week of Jesus' life, Jesus was crucified. Peter failed and disappointed Jesus over and over again. He was given a chance and he blew it. In the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus took Peter with him and some of the apostles to pray with Jesus, to stay awake for him, the prayer that Jesus was praying was so intense, blood was coming from his forehead. And when Jesus was praying, Peter fell asleep, and Jesus had to wake him up and say, "Can't you stay up and awake for just an hour?" And then later that night, if you remember, Jesus was arrested, and even though Peter said it would never happen, Peter denies even knowing Jesus. Not once, not twice, 3 times he denies him. Luke records the exact moment after Peter's third denial. I mean, the exact moment. He writes this: "The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter." What intensity there must have been in that for Peter. And then Luke says, "Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him, and before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And Peter went outside, and he wept bitterly." What a graphic illustration of a crushed and defeated spirit. I have failed Jesus. I failed myself and everybody else. I let him down. What have I done? And then Peter wept bitterly. You know, one of the things that I find kind of annoying or an inconvenience is when you buy something, you know, you go to an electronics store or you go to the mall or supermarket or whatever, and you buy something and you have to return it. You know, it might not work the way you thought it did, or, you know, it might not be the same color you wanted, or it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or I just can't figure out how to work it, you know, because the instructions are in English, but they might as well be in German, and I can't figure out how to put it together, and it can't be me, it's got to be the product. And so now I have to go through the inconvenience, use my time, my gas in my car to take the product back. And the lineups of these places where you have to return things, it's never short, it's never quick. And there's an anxiety that builds up in your spirit as you're waiting for your turn. What if they won't take it back? Or you get this mental image in your mind of how you're going to act when you talk to this person about this product you're not happy about. You're not going to be friendly, right? You're not going to ask them how they're doing or how's their day going. You will not settle for anything less. You don't want it to be exchanged. You want your money back, period. They had a chance. And they blew it. Just give me back my money. Today in our culture, it's even less forgiving than that because you can just go online and write up a review that's negative about something if you're not happy with it. And most people today, they're wired that way anyways. They don't go on and write positive reviews. Usually it's negative. But just one or two negative reviews, about the restaurant. Its service or the price of it and so on, or about the car dealership, or about the vacation spot, or about the product, we don't buy it. And today, we are conditioned to think that there is no second chance. You had your chance. I'm not happy. I'm not using your product anymore. Just give me my money back. Unfortunately, that thinking can carry over with us even when we think about people and relationships. How often have we thought, about other people? They were given something to do, a task, and they blew it. They didn't do a very good job, and somebody else had to clean up the mess. Or maybe they said something to you that was offensive, and you don't want anything to do with them because of it. You write them off. Or how many times, have we blown it? And we thought to ourselves, I know I've made a mistake, I admit it, but I'm going to be so much better at this the next time. But there is no next time, because there's never a second chance. See, the fact is, we have a lot more in common with Peter than we think. We do things we regret. So did Peter. We say things that we wish we could take back. So did Peter. And we hurt the people we love. So did Peter. And just like Peter, there are times in our lives when we hit rock bottom. We struggle to see any hope or a way out. And most of us are actually very good at hiding it. Or blaming other people about it. Or there's a part of us that doesn't even want to look inside our soul to see what's happening in our lives. Things in our past that we simply can't forgive ourselves for. Anger or bitterness that just finds its home in our soul and controls us rather than actually just moving on. Mistakes we've made. Unhealthy habits that control us. You ever wish there was something in your life that you could do a different way? Have you ever blown it in your marriage? Have you ever said something to your kids that you wish you could take back? And in a society that says you get one shot at it or you blow it, then you're a failure. And we think to ourselves, if I only had a second chance. In the moment that Jesus was looking straight at Peter, Peter had denied him for the third time, he would have felt all those things. He let Jesus down. He was a failure. He's all words. But when you got to put it into action, he couldn't do it. But the good news of Easter is that the empty tomb and the risen Jesus means you get to start over. Listen to those two words again. Go tell his disciples and Peter, especially Peter. Find him and tell him that Jesus wants him to know that he's alive. The good news of Easter, the empty tomb, Peter, means you can have forgiveness. I forgive you. And with my forgiveness comes a second and a third and a fourth and unlimited chances. And while a second chance is possible, it's not always automatic. Peter wept bitterly. for what he had done. There's a depth of sorrow there that's an expression of deep remorse. He owned his failure. Or what I admire about him is he didn't blame somebody else for his failures. That's just so much deeper than saying, I'm sorry. And when you ask Jesus for forgiveness, he forgives you. And in that forgiveness, you can be sure that as far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. That forgiveness that Jesus gives us means that God thoroughly enjoys entering into our lives and helping us with the broken things of our life. It means that no matter how hurt or defeated, no matter how damaged you are, God can repair and restore you. That's the power of the resurrection. God can give you a new start. I mean, when you look at the Bible from cover to cover, it's all about people who messed up. And it's all about the God of the second chance, that he's not afraid of the mess of the people made, and he's willing to enter into it and restore them. I mean, look at Abraham. He's the founder of the faith, and yet he lied about his wife Sarah. And yet the prophet Isaiah calls him a friend of God. Look at Jonah. You know, he may be running from Nineveh, but the word of the Lord came to him a second time. And what we witnessed was the miracle of all of Nineveh turning to God. Look at David. He blew it. He committed murder and adultery. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. And yet if you read Psalm 51, you can see he's asking God for a new heart, that he's sorry for what happened, and God grants that to him. Look at Thomas. He doubted Jesus' resurrection. He said, unless I see the nail marks in the hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. Yet Jesus appeared to him, and Thomas did believe, and he became a great missionary in India. Look at Mark. On his first missionary journey, he abandons the great apostle Paul. Yet he was restored. In fact, we're studying today his gospel message about the resurrection. And look at Peter. Look at him. He may have cursed and denied Jesus, but he wept bitterly for what he had done. And the resurrected Jesus met with him personally and forgave him. And in his forgiveness that he gave him, it was instant, it was permanent, it was complete, and Jesus reinstates Peter, and he becomes the undisputed leader of the early church. How about you? Those of you who are watching online today, you ever failed at anything? You need a second chance? Well, you've come to the right place, because second chances are the specialty of Jesus. As a matter of fact, he not only gives you a second chance, but with his resurrection comes unlimited chances, because he knows our frailties as humans and we fail over and over again. But his mercies are new every morning. His forgiveness is unlimited, and his love is unending. You know, author and writer, poet Louisa Fletcher, she once wrote this. I love it. And I want to quote it for you. She writes, and I quote, I wish there was some wonderful place called the land of beginning again, where all our mistakes and heartaches and all our selfish greed could be dropped like a shabby old coat at the door and never put back on again. End of quote. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there was such a place? Where you could take all your brokenness and all your anxiety and all your grief and failures and mistakes and replace them with peace and joy and hope and forgiveness, despite the mistakes we make. Well, there is such a place. It's found at the empty tomb on a day called Easter. and it is found in the resurrected Jesus. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Listen to the words again. Go tell his disciples and Peter. And Peter. Let's pray together. Gracious Father, Easter time is a lot of fun. We even experienced that today as we celebrate your resurrection with the kids. It was wonderful to have them here and just talk to them and see them. We have fun with family and food and chocolate and laughter. But there is a deeper meaning behind Easter that many people, they just walk by it. They don't even notice. Some people here today online need that deeper meaning in their life. Well, why don't we just be honest and admit we all need that deeper meaning in our life? And while it's seldom in life we get a second chance without being looked down on or being seen as damaged or somehow broken or a failure, the message of Easter, the power in the empty tomb, is that when we ask you for a second chance, when we ask you for forgiveness, you give us that second chance. The truth be known, when we ask you for forgiveness, you give us a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and unlimited chances. It's unlimited because the power of your resurrection is unlimited. And that any time we ask for forgiveness, you are always the God of the second chance. I know that right now, in this moment, there are people present who feel like Peter, who feel completely defeated and deflated. They are living defeated and have resigned themselves to think, I'm never going to get beyond this. My marriage, my kids, my finances, my life, I have failed, and I don't even know what to do. Well, help me, Lord, to see Easter differently today. Help me to see that Jesus' resurrection means I get a second chance, and another chance, and another chance. Help me to start to trust the God of the second chance. In his name we pray. Amen.